Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is the sometimes Greg Hutchins. Hi,
well, hey, Greg. For today, Greg, all right? We'll go with that. We were just talking about the pace of change and all that good stuff. And as I'm getting ready to hit record, he said, "Oh, there's a new record button on my control panel here." Now, this is going to be a great discussion. I'm going to hit the one I typically use and hope it hasn't changed. So we keep our fingers crossed that this recording will work.
I pray.
But anyway, I wanted to ask you, Greg, and I think I phrased it and you appreciate it, is that with our combined sets of experiences, we probably have some experience on trying to influence somebody else. Now, both you and I have daughters, and we both know that influencing a teenage daughter is not useful activity. Luckily it passes and they, move on and do other stuff and they sometimes listen to us, but it's best we can hope for. Yet about a week ago, I was in a discussion and the question came up is the theory was this guy was trying to set up, how do I establish setting reliability goals for the new projects as they come along? And there's a new project coming up, and I got some time in the team meeting to talk about setting a reliability goal. And okay, well, it's useful and stuff. But it became clear that he was concerned that just setting a goal wasn't really enough. And I says, yeah, it has to actually, you have to convince other folks that having the goal and using that information and measuring as you go along what progress you're making towards achieving that goal can guide decisions that you make in the design of the product. And he was like, well, I'm not sure. It became clear in the conversation that he didn't have enough of what's the right word for it? Not authority, credibility, that simply proposing and get it added to the list is simple. It doesn't cost anybody anything, but to influence the other parts of his team, his boss and the engineering team, to actually use that information was where the sticking point was. And so I thought, well, let me ask Greg about this. How do you go about influencing others when you really know it's the right thing to do?
Oh, simple question.
Oh yeah. I saved the good ones
for
you.
Throw on the knee pads and work them.
No.
I'll come up. So first of all, what type of, it's understanding the scope of the project. Obviously, this person has some influence, very little authority, but maybe some accountability. So what type of project is it? If it's a project to build a product,
yeah,
absolutely.
Think of it as a small, electronics box that does stuff, whether it's a medical device or a telecommunications device or a small satellite or whatever. It's a small box with electronics is the heart of the product.
Okay, so normally you have a project manager or a program manager.
Yep.
And he or she is going to think of, first of all, the triple constraints: cost, schedule, quality, scope are 4 constraints.
Yep.
And somehow, this person is going to fit a goal or an objective into one of those 4 quadrants.
Well, yeah, when I asked that exact question, can you rank order these priorities for me? And basically the 4 you just said. And it was a consumer product. And she said, time to market, time to market, time to market. Now, what were the other ones? And it was very obvious across their organization you spent money to get it done on time. If you were justifying, buying a more expensive part because you could get it versus a cheaper part, it's okay. We're going to ship on time.
So basically, out of the 4 quadrants of a project, it became schedule.
Right.
That's a critical metric that
That's right.
needs to be managed throughout the project life cycle.
Right.
So then you take, reliability or a quality requirement and basically parse that into each part of the project and say, okay, how does this reliability metric or goal or objective fit into each part of the project life cycle? And can you come up with metrics again, or KPIs or KRIs, right?
Right.
For each cycle, each part of the project life cycle, and then show the project manager, this particular reliability requirement, right, is very critical for you to meet your schedule.
And that's where we got to,
whatever it is.
I think your advice is spot on. It's what are your key decision makers, the project manager in many cases, or program manager, is, better run projects like this will spell it out saying, hey, this is the priority. We have to ship on time. Cost is important, is second. The other stuff, don't screw it up. don't make them worse, kind of thing. And I've seen others where they'd say, we want to be the bleeding edge of technology. We want to, carve out a market and grow market share because we can solve problems in a unique way or whatever. And in that point, then cost is not an issue. It's like, we're going to pile a bunch of money into getting the wicked coolest thing and so on. But if you walk in and say, because it's the right thing to do for your customer, unless that program manager understands how to interpret that comment or feature or benefit to what's important for them to ship it on time, it's a non-starter. They don't even hear it. But if you go to this program manager and tell her that if we pay attention to reliability and find and resolve design errors early in the program, the chance of finding one just before we're ready to launch and delaying the launch goes way down. There's no guarantee. We still might find something later, but if we can find 10 of them early, that's 10 fewer that are available to delay the project right before launch. And, okay, that affects schedule. Okay, I get that. And also is a bit of risk talk, isn't it there, Greg?
Always,
But it's I think the first step is not, why is this useful from a reliability? Like if I walked in and said it reduces failure rate, okay, how does that help us get to market on time?
Who cares?
That's a stretch, right?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't answer the who cares and why should I care questions.
Right. But that's I think the very first step in building influence is make sure that it's the WIFM, I think is the acronym. What's in it for them or what's in it for me? Answer that question. And that's difficult because there's usually two different things going on. There's one that's the stated, we're going on schedule. We really got to get to schedule. What that program manager, what she might not be saying is that this is my third program. If I get this out on schedule, I'll get promoted and I'll, become a vice president or whatever. They probably won't say that as a group objective or goal or rationale for what we're doing. Yet, if you can suss that out from what's their actions, what are their statements, what are their priorities, what's their consistent internal or private motivations, then you can apply connect if we get the reliability right, it increases the chance that you'll look good, that you'll get, seen in the eyes of the organization as doing a great job. Or you could couple it with, it'll get us out on time and it'll personally benefit you without saying it directly.
Yeah, and let me put another spin on that. A lot of professionals, individual contributors, have that WIFM attitude. What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
But what they're trying to sell, and by the way, most business these days is selling an idea, selling yourself, selling the project.
Or a change, a suggestion, or an idea,
Absolutely.
or a solution, or whatever, yeah.
Absolutely. And what happens is instead of having that whiff 'em, what's in it for me attitude, it's really what's in it for you, project manager. What's
Oh yeah. That's what I mean. Is you got to answer it for what's in it for the project manager, what's in it for the decision makers that can
exactly.
implement your idea.
And we would call that WUFO. What's in it for you?
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Because let's face it, a project manager is not going to bear her heart or her soul to you being a quality or a reliability engineer. You're too low on the totem pole.
No, you'd be surprised. I've talked to some people saying, well, if I do that, if I had one vice president actually tell me that if I solve all of the design errors that create field problems, then I don't get to have as many repairs and as many people working for me. And then I won't be, get my private parking spot and be called a vice president. This is my empire built on that we make crappy products. And do you want me to tell your boss, or do you want to tell him that you have a better idea?
You.
And people listening to this podcast have heard that story before, but it was one of those things where he was very much about, and it wasn't the first person I ran into that was that way, is very much building their own empire within the organization without stepping outside of it, saying, well, what's in service to the customer or to the organization in general? Because they didn't see how they would personally benefit by actually reducing field failure rates and reducing the cost of ownership for the customers and, increasing customer satisfaction. They didn't, because if the market share went up, the stock went up a little bit, but that wasn't their motivation. Their motivation was the title. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Nope. That's the way it works in 99% of the cases.
Yep.
It's not what's good for the customer. It's not good for the organization. It's what's in it for that WUFO. What's in it for you? Now,
to be fair, there are people that what's in it for them is they get job satisfaction by, delivering on time a really good product that helps the customer. There's some people that, and you accuse me of being a philanthropist sometimes, but it's,
well, better than a philanderer.
Yeah, there you go. But the idea is that, and I learned this years and years ago, and it was one of the few things I could honestly say I took away from ASQ. One of their training sessions, and it was a leadership meeting. All the volunteer leaders were gathered together, and they were doing all this training. And one of them was a PhD candidate that was studying why do people volunteer. And I thought, because I was looking to add, more volunteers to the group that we're dealing, just so we could do more things. And I thought, this would be good. And she said, there's intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. The extrinsic ones are the ones they'll say, I need a salary, or I like giving back, or it's part of professional development. I get to network, and I can make more money. I have a better title. I can add it to my resume. It's kind of things like that. And then the other side are the intrinsic ones, which are like, well, it's job satisfaction. If I do a good job and I know I did a good job, I'm good with that. I don't need somebody else to congratulate me. Well, there's others really want the accolades from other people. They don't go say, hey, boss, I did a good job. You need to give me a medal. But they, will apply for or do everything they can to become the employee of the month kind of thing. So they get recognition. Others, it's promotions or titles. Others, it's earning more money, whatever. But some are stated, some are not. And that's what makes it hard, is that if you approach somebody and are contradicting or limiting their ability to achieve either of their extrinsic or intrinsic objectives or motivations, then it's a harder way. It's difficult to get their support or to influence them.
And that goes back to the basic question you posed a couple of minutes ago. You're a quality or reliability engineer, and you want to have your particular objective or goal be critical in the project. The project manager, whoever he or she is, may not consider that an important goal. But on the other hand, if you can take whatever is important for her, time to market or go to market, and you can help them in that metric, which, by the way, is not yours, it's really his, the leader's metric or the manager's metric, then you've got influence.
Yeah. And I don't know, it took me years and years and years to learn that. It's like, well, this is just a good idea. And like, well, my boss would look at me, so everybody has good ideas, what the hard part to this, and it's not easy to understand what motivates people intrinsically at all. Yet the extrinsic stuff you can leverage because it's usually stated, or it's part of their documentation, or it's part of the regular sets of priorities that they're,
or job title
or whatever. Is arm yourself knowing that if you're talking to three people, there's probably different motivations of what's in it for them. And so be prepared to say the reliability goal will reduce the risk of a product launch delay. It'll reduce
risk. Did I hear risk?
You've taught me, you've got it in my language. It'll reduce the field failure rate, risking customer satisfaction. It'll reduce the demand on the engineering teams so that they have time to work on the next project once this one launches. We won't have to carry over, because the engineering manager, is looking at it going, well, I could really do this on time if I didn't have half my staff fixing problems from the last one. So if we pay attention to reliability and quality, now we'll have less things to fix later. And then you have more of your staff back. Whereas that's not the same as it'll increase the probability of shipping on time without unknown issues that we have to solve. It's the same action, right? It's find and fix the problems that are in the design earlier than later. It might be the exact same proposal, yet the justification for it may span 4 or 5 different arguments. And you can say, and I often just use, you get 2 minutes to explain it. I recommend we do HALT earlier in the program to find problems and design them out of the product earlier than later. It reduces this, it does that, it helps that, it reduces the chance of that, bang, 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 bang. And you look directly at the engineering manager and says it reduces the chance of you losing engineers to fix previous problems. It look at the project manager. It helps you launch on time because we reduce the number of issues that we find later. And you look at the production manager saying, you'll get a cleaner design so you can make it right the first time without having a bunch of workarounds and reworks and stuff like that. And you can, but it's the ability to think through all those. This is the start. The second is to be able to react on the spot, because then the marketing guy says, well, if that's the goal, can I put that on the marketing sheet? And that might be a double-edged sword. You might want it on there, you might not. It's like, but what's in it for marketing if you make a better product, right? What are what's their advantage of? And I often come right back to the marketing people saying, what percentage of the buying decision is contingent on the brand's perception or the customer's perception of our brand's reliability performance? And most marketing teams will know that answer through their surveys. What influences people to buy our product? And if reliability is above 50%, that's large. That's a big deal. And that covers revenue, and it's like, if we have poor reliability and that becomes the perception, and that's a driver for why people buy this type of product, that means we could lose a significant percentage of our sales. So let's put some money behind that. And it takes some practice to think through and work through what's important to the procurement manager, to the engineering manager, to the project manager, to the, each of the teams, software team, electrical, and so on. What is important to them? And how do we couch our proposals or recommendations like setting a reliability goal and monitoring it, measuring it, such that it overcomes, well, this is one more requirement. This adds things to our plate. There's extra stuff we have to do, which brings up another point on influences. Don't go sales team on them. Only talk about the benefits and what's good for them. Is acknowledge that, this is different. We got to do some extra work here. We got to think through this a little differently. We got to spend more money on components. We might have to do some testing. Stuff like that is, I think being straightforward and honest helps build your credibility within the organization, which gives you a better foundation to influence people.
And I'll leave with one final thought, Fred. And I hope it sort of complements what you're saying. And we see that in our little reliability quality groups. There's a lot of focus on tools, right?
Yep.
And I say, great, but normally I say, so what, right?
Right.
And as long as it facilitates or helps decision making, it's important. So, as you know, I'm working on a class. This isn't a pitch, but I'm doing a little class for you on risk-based project management.
Mm-hmm.
And a big piece of that is risk-based decision making. And what we do for that, and we do it for our AI products too, we'll focus on 4 Ps: being proactive, preventive, predictive, and preemptive. And if you, as a contributor, instead of focusing on a goal, but if you can move your maturity up, not you specifically, I mean, we've already had this discussion.
Like the quality or reliability maturity of your organization or the way you approach it.
Yeah. If a person can, instead of focusing on the tool, focus on the quality, which has those 4 P attributes of the decision making, then I think you're going to enhance your credibility, your visibility, your brandability, and your decision-making ability.
Yep. Well, it sounds like a topic for a whole nother one. How do we influence decisions? That might be another spin on this one, because influence is really about influencing decisions.
That's right. That's how you get the credibility or influenceability or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Sounds good. So anyway, this came out of a discussion that was about how do I get my boss to, set a reliability goal kind of thing. And it's a little bit more nuanced than just writing it down and handing it to him, saying, here you go, put that on page 16 of the document and we're done. Because you really want it to be used. And that makes it more tricky. You need some buy-in and all the other things about change management. That might be another topic for us, Greg. But the idea is that it's a part of what we do. We can do plots all day long and look at data all day long, yet at the end of the day, we got to influence other people. And it's part of what we do. So if you've got a question on that or an experience or a success story of how something really worked better than you expected, I'd love to hear about it. And we'll probably talk about it on the show. And if it's really, really cool story, then we'll get you on the line and we'll talk to you about it. That would be cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But this really does work a whole lot better if we get comments and questions. So head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR and let us know what your thoughts are. And there's a couple of ways to get in touch with us there. Greg and I are available through LinkedIn, and the other hosts of the show are available through LinkedIn and our About pages. So plenty of ways to get in touch, and we look forward to hearing from you. So with that, Greg, let me influence you with a motion to end today's podcast episode.
Make things happen.
There you go. Thanks, Greg. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.